Rahul, it seems like a bit of a contradiction to think of Goa as an urban center.
That's because we think of urban spaces only in the context of the big city.
Yeah.
Right? A lot of people are saying that urban systems are also urban spaces.
Yeah.
The city is only one kind of an urban form.
Yeah.
And by an urban system, what do we mean? We essentially mean a network,
Yeah.
a functioning network
Yeah.
of villages, towns, forests, fields, different kinds of industries, which Goa is a prime example
So
of.
what has Goa got in its favor as of now?
The fact that it is a decentralized space,
Yeah.
that there is not one big city which dominates the landscape.
Yeah.
You have Panjim, Madgaon, Vasco, each of them having their own value. You also have each of them well entrenched in the local economy and the local region. You have people commuting from villages to those towns. So it's a very good, vivid example of an urban system.
Yeah. And how does this fit in with your plans for an urban center at Fontaines?
Basically, we want to set up, urbanology, the Goa Institute of Urbanology, or the
Yeah.
Goa Center of Urbanology. And the reason being that, we have a network of urbanology centers in different parts of the world. Our work is at a global level, but at every level, at the level of the globe also, we basically inform the debates through specific local through specific localities.
For example?
So, for example, in Dharavi, we have a center called the Dharavi Institute of Urbanology, where essentially the logic of Dharavi informs the debates and the discussions and the arguments and our work over there.
Yeah.
Similarly, the Goa Center will, the logic and history of Goa will inform it.
Yeah.
So even though we are a global network, the whole global space consists of number of local network,
Tell us
local
something
centers.
about
Yeah.
your work in Japan and the US.
Yeah, in Japan, in Shimokuzawa, we did a workshop called the Urban Typhoon. This was essentially initiated by my colleague Matthias Echanove, and the idea was to work with local residents and help them in to sort of combat some big development projects which were being planned by the government in Shimokuzawa. But we did it through the realm of culture. It is a space where culture and art brought people together, and they began thinking about Shimokuzawa in newer and creative ways.
And in the US?
In the US, we have been invited by a group of people who are affiliated to Jane Jacobs and her body of work. Jane Jacobs is essentially an urban activist based in. She's originally from Canada, but she did a lot of work in New York, and she fought big development projects in Manhattan, and she also helped to define urban spaces in more creative ways. Her books essentially argue that cities, are very complex systems, and she also questioned the urban-rural divide in a simplistic way. She believed that the neighborhood is a very important unit of urban living, and so her ideas are very inspiring. And her friends, who are part of a network, they are in dialogue with us, and they want us to do an urban typhoon workshop in the Bay Area next year.
And much of your work begins with Pukar, which you started in earlier this decade. Can you tell us a bit about that, what it stands for?
Yeah. Okay, PUKAR stands for Partners for Urban Knowledge, Action and Research. It is a center which was founded by Arjun Appadurai. He's an anthropologist, and he is based in New York, but originally a Mumbai boy. And he wanted to develop a research center which does not focus on academic research alone, but takes the city of Mumbai as the starting point and involves its citizens in the process of doing research. Right now, PUKAR is headed by Anita Patil Deshmukh, and she heads PUKAR and has a lot of interesting projects right now.
2-3 years down the line, all goes well. What do you expect to see the Goa Institute shape up into?
I think, I must also say that the whole idea of urbanology was started by my friend Matthias Echanove. And his basic idea was to allow for a language of activism to emerge, which gets the participation of local residents. And in a way, we see in Goa, we see a very active public sphere. We see in Goa, for example, in villages and towns, a lot of groups vociferously having arguments and discussions with over the regional plan, and we somehow believe that if we can somehow complement these discussions and spaces, this would fulfill his idea of what urbanology as a practice is all about. And because I live in Goa, I would like to see the Goa Institute of Urbanology develop into a space which brings to the foreground this whole understanding of Goa as an urban system, a much more complex understanding of what urban spaces are, complex in the sense it allows for agricultural practices, it allows for forests and environments to be seen as an integral part of the urban landscape. This is something which we need to do at different levels, whether it's the environmental level or any other level. And somehow the potential of that to happen in Goa is very strong. And we hope that through the center, these ideas are somehow they manage to shape policy. That could be a long-term goal, but hopefully it may happen one day. And at the same time also contribute to global discussions about urbanism.
You're very optimistic in your understanding of Goa. Generally people tend to look at it as a problem area because it doesn't fit in with notions of growth and protest. People protesting a whole lot of
Yeah,
things.
I mean that's true, but people may have different perspectives, but from my experience shows that Goa is actually one of the best examples of urban living in many ways. I'm deliberately sort of using it because it seems like a paradox, but urbanism does not have to be about big buildings and big structures and big cities, but it's about it's a state of mind. As an anthropologist, I can very clearly say that whether it's at the level of literacy, whether it's at the level of independence for women, freedom for women to negotiate public spaces, Goa is far more urban than many cities in India. So I believe that notions of urbanism are very complex, and we use the idea of the city in a very simple way. So in many ways, I would say Goa should be understood as a fine example of urban living, and that's the only way we'll be able to preserve it also.
Thanks so much.